Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the DVC Show. Coming up this week, the new point charts are out for 2021, and there is a lot to talk about, so that is what's coming up next. The DVC Show is brought to you by DVCstore.com. You'll save thousands of dollars on your next DVC contract when you let the experts at the DVC Store help welcome you home. Visit them on the web at www.dvcstore.com or give them a call at 1-800-550-6493. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Coming to you from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends Sean Falk.
Hi.
Jackie Gailey.
Hi, everyone.
New addition to the table this week, my good friend, Mr. John Doan.
Hello.
Joining us via Skype, as always, Mr. Pete Shidley.
Hello from snowy Buffalo.
And back in the production nook, our associate producer, Mr. Corey Fiasconaro.
Welcome home.
With that creepy-ass smile on his face. Yeah. So, a couple things in housekeeping before we get started. As always, if you have some points you want to rent out, or if you're interested and somebody who hasn't muted needs to mute, or if you have you want to sell your contract or buy a contract, please check out our friends over at dvcstore.com. They're always available to help you. The reason they're not here this week, Jerry is on vacation, and Jamie's holding down the fort. So we had to do the shows this week without them. And but we've got dues coming up in January, so a great way to raise some money to pay your dues is rent out some points or transfer some points. You can do that all at their website or give them a call, 1-800-550-6493. I also want to make sure we mention that we have relaunched their Instagram account. Our very own Morgan Lamone, who's part of our DVC, our Disneyland team, has kind of hijacked their Instagram account. She's doing some really creative stuff with it. You really should go check it out. You can find it at the DVC Store on Instagram. I want to say like .com but no, it's the DVC Store. And also just give a plug for DVCFan.com. That's my DVC blog, as well as our DVC Fan Facebook group. Great group of people. Head over there, check that out. Okay, so 2021 point charts. Just came out right before we released this, before we recorded this, and they've made some changes. I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it. I'm looking to these people to tell me how I feel. But instead of 5 seasons, we have 7.
7, yeah.
And
for most.
What's that?
For all of
most
Disney
of them,
World.
For all of World. For all
Yes,
of
that's
World,
right.
There's,
For all the world, yeah.
And DVC is saying that the reason that they have done this is to try and distribute availability a little more evenly. We've talked many, many times on the show about how if you're a DVC member and you want to visit in the fall, you better be booking early because it's very difficult to get availability in the fall. So it's not surprising that in the fall time frame is where a lot of points went up. But I know, John, you have gone through this.
Yeah.
John is
Bing Shoei.
Bing Shoei on the boards. You've been heavily involved in last year's debacle,
Right.
with the 2-bedroom lock-off. And you had said something to me before, you really can't talk about 2021 without going back and looking at what happened with 2020.
Yeah.
So let's give some context to that, kind of tell
Sure.
that story.
So 2021 is unique in that you have to look at it in context relative to where we're coming from. So when you had the 2020 debacle last year, and the debacle, for anyone who didn't know, is that last year, about 10 days after the condo meeting, Disney ended up releasing the point charts, except, rather than talking about the point charts or anything like that, because these things take months to develop, right? It's not like someone's making it over the course of 10 days. And so what you have is, we were at this meeting, and we spent 20 minutes talking about soap dispensers and Murphy beds, and not nary a mention of these new point charts. And I think the membership was already a little concerned because, Terry Schultz comes in, no one knows who.
Terry Schultz is the new senior vice president of Disney Vacation Club and Adventures by Disney, and she had taken over right before this.
That's correct.
So it's December of last year.
Yeah, so this is December of last year, and within a week and a half of the meeting where nothing was mentioned of the point charts, suddenly we got these point charts that really leveraged the lock-off premium. And so that was...
And kind of talk to people about what that is.
Okay, so when they create, when the public offering statement comes out for a resort, it has a number of points that are sold. And the idea is that the number of points sold for a resort should be able to book up every single room for every day of the entire year. And so that's what the membership buying power is. With two-bedroom lock-offs, they treat those two-bedroom lock-offs as two bedrooms. And so you have, like for example, if you take a look at the Grand Floridian, the two bedrooms are actually, there are no dedicated studios or one bedrooms. And so every studio or one bedroom is part of a two-bedroom lock-off. So when they developed the points for this, for the Grand Floridian, they looked at it only as a two-bedroom. So when they say, for example, that any points you raise within a season or any points that you raise for a certain unit, you have to lower it somewhere else to balance it. So that way, that's Florida law that prevents people from selling a timeshare and then suddenly dumping a bunch of points into it and diluting ownership. And so what happened with the two-bedroom lock-offs was the Grand Floridian specifically, the number of points required to book every single room, if you looked at it from a studio and a one-bedroom perspective, there's always going to be a lock-off premium, and most members are okay with that. The idea that it costs more to manage these rooms, to do bookings.
And I just want to make sure, just for those who may not be clear, when we talk about a two-bedroom lock-off, you're talking about, there's a two-bedroom unit that's actually just a two-bedroom unit, right? A lock-off means that the second bedroom is a studio that has its own entrance, right? So it can be used as a studio, or it can be attached to a one-bedroom to make a two-bedroom, right? That's what we're talking about
Exactly.
with a lock-off. So I want to make sure people are clear on what we're talking about when we talk about a lock-off.
Yeah, and if you know anything about DVC availability, which Pete can speak to much more clearly, is that the studios always, always, always go first. And the one-bedrooms always, almost always go last. And the problem with that is that once you take that two-bedroom and you turn it into a studio, now you've got a ton of these one-bedrooms, right? And so these studios are booking up very quickly. The one-bedrooms are sitting around. But what Disney did was they raised the rates on the studios and the one-bedrooms, but they didn't lower it anywhere else because they look at it as a two-bedroom unit. So technically to them, that two-bedroom unit didn't go down, those rates did not go up at all. And so it seems like
Right.
it's a little bit. It seems like it's not much. It's like, I think at the Grand Floridian and across all the resorts, the lock-off premium ended up being between 3% and 4%. Does that sound right, Pete?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah,
but
so-
it was a significant change. I mean, they added 100,000 points to the resorts based on booking those rooms as a studio and a one bedroom. And if you think about it, with what they did, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, because they can charge, the example you used, Grand Floridian, because there's technically on the books no studios or one bedrooms, they can raise the points on those studios and one bedrooms and don't have to lower it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right,
But they've never done that before.
And
then the charts came out for 2020, and I'll let John keep talking about it.
And I just for context, the whole thing with DVC is the idea that when you buy in, the value of your points never change, right? Because they say that if they raise points here, they have to lower points here in that same use year. And so what the consternation with the membership was in this was that they weren't doing that.
Yeah.
They raised the points without adjusting it somewhere else. And I think it's not I think it's not hyperbole to say that the DVC membership at large kind of had a complete and utter meltdown, at least the one on our boards, on our DVC forums.
Sure. Yeah, so people actually started doing the analysis and they looked at the breakdown. And 2% doesn't sound like much, 3% doesn't sound like much. But when you look at 3% at the Grand Floridian, that's saying that Disney has ownership of 2%, right? So if you're saying that they've now goosed it up another 3% for the lockoff, they basically essentially 150% of their holdings is now what they have, because now that they have these lockoff premiums where the membership is paying more to book all those rooms, suddenly there's a lot of points that aren't being used, right? And so there's more breakage. And where does breakage go? Breakage goes to cash reservation, the CRO. So they go to cash reservations, and Disney ends up selling those rooms for cash, whatever is not booked. And it may end up at Saratoga Springs because of the exchange and things like that. Whatever the case is, Disney suddenly has lowered the membership value. They've lowered the overall buying power of the membership. And so that's what people were most upset about with the lock-offs. And so that happened 2 weeks after the condo meeting.
Right. So there's this major change.
Yeah.
This huge change. And the condo meeting, they say nothing about it, and they spring this on the membership 2 weeks later.
On a website, just a post, small post. You've got a notification, right? And so people looked at this, and then less than 3 weeks after that, or 2 weeks after that, they came out with the resale restrictions. And feel whatever you may about that, but for the most part, people were like shell-shocked. And so all throughout 2019, even though those were retracted, and you've got to thank people on the boards like Zavender and C.R. Vetter, Bobby Waz, a lot of people who reached out to Disney beforehand and said, look, these charts don't look right, there's something not right here. They ended up getting that reversed. I think someone in that group, and I suspect it's the Italian guy from the other side of the planet, who put up a website, I think it's called What's Wrong with DVC? So that got some traction, that got their attention. He was talking about, legal work and things like that. But whatever it was, someone got Disney's attention, and at some point they rolled it back before the deadline for when people started booking 2020, and they reverted it essentially back to 2019. Great, everybody said yay for now.
But what are they going to do next year?
Yeah, so
no, it's important.
And let me just break in here, because I don't know, John, if you actually, I can't remember if you called them.
Yeah.
I think you did.
I did.
But I was one of the ones that called and had a long conversation, and Disney was very adamant that they were within their rights to do this. And when they rolled it back, they basically claimed, well, we didn't communicate it well.
Exactly.
So we're going to roll it back for now, and it's going to come back in a year, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't say that specifically, but they
Now, again,
indicated it.
This all happened right before I bought my first contract. Okay,
Right.
but I paid. I went back and I read a lot of things, and I've had discussions with various people. That's all I'll say. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that we have a number of lawyers, a number of attorneys, as part of the DVC community on our forums, disboards.com. We have a number of attorneys, and the words class action lawsuit were mentioned more than once, and not in a hysterical way. They were building a case for a class action lawsuit against DVC, and then my impression was that DVC, I think they wanted to avoid that. I think they wanted to avoid that.
Even the publicity, I think. Just the
And I'll be
publicity.
honest, I think they saw something. I think when the lawyers looked at it closer, they probably saw something there that they were concerned they could lose.
Or it could just make them look bad. Like they would need to do is make them.
It
look
would be
bad.
honestly, from a PR standpoint, it would be devastating if there was a class action lawsuit by the membership against DVC. DVC's stock and trade is the membership. They have to keep them happy. Okay, now not everything is going to be, well received, and sometimes that's just life, but there is that line, and it seemed like they really definitely crossed the line with that. So let's fast forward now to this newest point chart.
Well, I was going to say,
go ahead.
do y'all think that maybe they did it because they were going to set the resale restrictions and it looked like they pulled back some? Like, if they had just done the resale restrictions, that would have been what everyone was so up in arms about, which they were, but not to the level of what the point change was. So by releasing both and then pulling back on the point change, it didn't look so bad for the resale restriction side.
I would think it had more of like a summative effect. I mean, to be honest. Again, the point of bringing all that up, the resale restrictions at all, is because throughout this entire 2019, it was a rough year for members. Like, a lot of members kind of felt like they were just waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Mm-hmm. We had the point charts. They were retracted, but they said they didn't do anything wrong. It was just a messaging issue. And then you had the resale restrictions. And so all these things were happening, and we were just kind of like, okay, they're going to slow roll it, right? So they're going to be smart about it. Instead of being that huge bump with the lockout premium, they're going to do it year by year, so it's not so big, or they're just going to reintroduce it, having all their legal ducks in order. And so that was the concern. And so when these charts came out, and I'll let Pete get back to, I'll let Pete talk about the charts a little more in terms of what they represent now. But you have to look at these charts in context, because with what we had dealt with over the last restriction, what they did, I would actually applaud what's happening now. It affects me personally. Like, my family normally
Well,
travels in
let's
December.
talk about what is happening right now. So, Pete, talk to me about your impressions of this change with the 2021 point charts going to now 7 seasons at Walt Disney World from 5.
Yeah. So number one, all this stuff that John was talking about, they did not increase the lockout premium in these charts, at least as far as I can tell. It's very complicated to do this calculation, because you literally have to look at the entire year as a dedicated, as a lockoff room, as a 2-bedroom, and the entire year as a studio and a 1-bedroom. I did this for the Boardwalk Villas last year, and they had increased the lockout premium by 41% at Boardwalk. The amount of the lockoff premium, the overall fraction was much smaller. This year I did the same calculation. It actually went down by 0.8%.
Huh.
So there's, I didn't do the calculation for every single resort. It took me a good hour to do that one calculation for the one resort. But
God
from
bless
what I can
engineers.
tell,
God bless engineers.
So good on Disney for looking at that and deciding it wasn't worth it for them to do that. What actually came out of this, though, the 7 seasons, is we're seeing what Disney has always said they can do, which is a redistribution of points across seasons. So for those that follow what we've talked about availability, the most popular time of year is mid-September to mid-January. Basically, they took that time of year for the most part and raised the points per night to stay during that time of year. From end of January to Easter, they left it pretty close to the same. There's some dates they raised, some dates they lowered, but it was, we're talking less than 5 points a night, or it's not a night, a week changes, so very minor tweaks. And then from mid-April to the end of August, they actually lowered the points per night. So they basically redistributed the points from the most popular DVC season to the least popular DVC season, which is from the end of April through summer. The hardest hit times, I'm just gonna call up my chart here. The most increase was from October 1st to basically the end of November, not counting Thanksgiving. A couple days of Thanksgiving are pointed separately, but those 2 months rose about 7 points a week for studios, up to about 21 points a week for the 2-bedrooms. The only exception there is that both BLT and Riviera saw as much as 30 points increase for 2-bedrooms. Those two had a larger shift in points than some of the other resorts. And I should step back. I surveyed 8 resorts, so Animal Kingdom, Boardwalk, Poly, Bay Lake, Saratoga, Old Key West, Wilderness Lodge, which also is the same charts as Copper Creek, and Riviera. So there was a couple I didn't do, but I did most of the Walt Disney World ones. So that time period had the largest rise. The largest drop is actually from April. No, I'm sorry.
May.
Let me make sure I get this right. Largest drop was from May 1st to June 10th. Those charts, those time periods saw a similar, and maybe even a little bit bigger drop than the fall saw going up again, from 7 to 14 points a night for studios, down, or I keep saying a night, I mean a week, 7 points a week, so about 1 point per day down. 2 bedrooms, 2 points, 3 a night, and two bedrooms, 3 or 4 points a night down. So if you go from May to June, you're going to see a significant drop in your points that you need to stay for a week. Summertime, also they've lowered. Even though summer is a very popular time to go to Disney World, it was never a popular time on DVC because the points were so high, and they lowered that time period. Again, it ranged depending on the resort, but between 5 points as high as Wilderness Lodge and Animal Kingdom saw some weeks go down by as much as 18 points.
All right. Well, I'm taking a look right now just to put numbers, apples to apples here. I'm looking at Bay Lake Tower. So that May 1st to June 10th period you were just talking about, in 2020, a week in a studio at Bay Lake Tower during that time is 174 points. In 2021, that drops to 165. So that's a 6-point drop there. For a one-bedroom, for example, 341 points in 2020 versus 310 points. Now, that's pretty significant in 2021. We were talking a drop of 30-plus points for a week. That's the difference between going and not going for some people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what they are clearly trying to do here is move this traffic around. And banking, and I think smartly banking, that we're coming to Disney. Okay, this isn't a matter of I'm not going anymore because I can't go because I don't have enough points to go in October. This is exactly what will happen. I think the traffic will follow this. Personally, I have a problem with this.
Yeah,
but I mean, from what I know so far,
Okay,
I don't have a problem with it. Now, if we find out that there is something hidden in these numbers, that'll be a slightly different story. I didn't lower the brightness on this. I look like I'm lit by Ed Wood here. So go ahead, Pete, and let me adjust my brightness.
That's okay. No, I think it's kind of a good thing. I mean, obviously, people that are used to going in the fall, myself, one of them, it'll take more points for a stay. You might previously, I've seen a lot of posts where people say, well, I bought enough points so that I have, I can stay for 7 nights, in October, and now I can only stay for 6 nights because the points went up by, 14 points for the week. But that's part of what they're doing, right? So now you don't have enough points to go for 7 days. You go for 6 days, even if you want to go at that same time of year. That alone increases availability,
right?
Because if people can stay for shorter periods of time at that season, they'll either look to going at a different season or they'll. So I think overall is as I said, is it benefiting every member? No, it certainly isn't, but it's redistributing the charts should see a shift in when people go, hopefully, and we might see a little more evening out of availability, which is really a win for the members if that happens, because right now the fall is so popular that if you don't get in at 11 months, you're not getting a room, and it's nice that maybe that'll shift a little bit and you can book your room at 7. You can get availability at 7 months. I don't know if it'll go that far.
We'll find out.
Members really like food and wine. They really like the Christmas decorations. So I'm not sure it's gonna completely shift things, but I think we could see an improvement over the next couple of years due to it.
Yeah, and I'm guessing they're probably not done. So we saw this in 2010 and 2011 as well. So they run up against this 20% maximum that they can reallocate. So they can redistribute.
So in 1 year, they can only redistribute 20% of the points.
As a maximum, 20% of any one given unit. So that's what they're running up against in December, which is when I normally travel. This is going to hurt me, but as a whole, the membership isn't hurt, and I think that that's more important. So, but they're running up against the 20% for early December, and I think the first 2 weeks of December are the busiest times for DVC.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's the busiest time for DVC, and it's nice to see that they're actually uncoupling what the park's busyness is and what DVC demand is, which is what their job is.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, management's job is to cater to what our needs are in terms of the booking and stuff like that. So they're going to raise December even more, I imagine, and then that may change it so people aren't walking through the fall when people actually want to stay. Right now, people are going out picking up the droppings of walkers, and people are jumping through hoops just trying to get these bookings in the fall.
Droppings of walkers. There's a,
I know,
there's
I
a,
was
there's
like,
a
wait.
visual.
Yeah.
There's a visual
Yes.
coming along with that I
I'm
really
like,
didn't need this
yeah.
morning, but okay.
I do think that I'm there's some points of it that I'm kind of surprised about. I actually am surprised that December is as low as it is for 2021, just because I also sell on the travel agency side, so I know what availabilities are in general on that end too, and it's really hard to get something in December even now at this point. So I thought there's some, like, you know, February 1 through 15 is 2 seasons more, you know, 2 seasons more expensive than almost the entire month of December, which is really surprising to me, just because, you know, the first week of February is not necessarily known as the busiest time of year or anything for like the regular resort guest side, and not necessarily DVC. But I do think that that's a little bit of a surprise. So I'm shocked December stayed as low as it did. I mean, it's the same pricing for Bay Lake with Bay Lake Tower for the end of September 20th through the 30th, and you can literally go all through December in there. So literally up until the 23rd. I mean, there's people who get out of school like the 19th and can come down for 4 nights at that point. So you have enough in there that you actually could balance out a Christmas stay.
But I think John's point is well taken,
Yeah.
that they're going to roll this out. I think you're going to continue to see the fall periods get more and more expensive, with other parts of the year getting less expensive. How does this affect? This is just a question as a newbie. How does this affect people with fixed weeks?
Okay, I'm sorry. No. The one thing when I was actually seriously considering Riviera, it was a fixed week the first week of December. Anyone who bought a fixed week at Riviera it was a brilliant move, because the points you pay 10% off the top. So let's say I'm making up a number. I'm sorry if these numbers are way off, but let's say it costs 120 points to book the first week of December in a studio, and you bought a fixed week, you would pay 132 points. So you put 10% on top of that. What the way they bumped the December up now, your point difference with the first week is negligible now, but you're guaranteed that week.
So no matter what they do with these point charts, if you
Yes.
buy a fixed week,
Yes.
they can't do anything to it.
Exactly right.
Correct. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's deeded. That's
deeded,
So
yeah.
that guy who did actually buy that first week of December, he could sell it at a value, because they could keep bumping this
Well,
up.
it remains to be seen what the resales on.
Well, relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking, he'll
Yeah.
get 110 instead of 90. But
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing about because you brought up Riviera? I am so excited that in 2021, from September 1st to the 19th, you can stay Sunday through Thursday in a tower studio for 9 points.
if you can get one,
If you can,
12 of you can stay there, or whatever the
I am
number is.
very
Yeah.
stealthy with reservations. And also from December 1st to the 23rd, it's only 12 points for
Yeah.
a night in a tower studio.
which is the reason why they're going to be impossible to touch if you
Yeah.
don't
I
own
know.
there.
I know.
If you're
It's going to
not,
be
if
hard.
you're not at the 11-month window with Riviera,
yeah,
it's going to be impossible to touch those.
I do think one of the best things to take away from like all of that with what happened with 2020 versus 2021 is being a member, buying into Disney Vacation Club, because you're not going to get that on the other side of, like, if you're just a regular resort guest, there is no community. I mean, on one end, like, Disney may say like mob mentality, but like there's no community as well, in that I cannot go as a regular resort guest and say, oh, prices are getting too high at Grand Floridian, they must come down. Disney could charge $3,000 a night. They're not going to get it, but they could do that. But if I'm a member, if I'm in Disney Vacation Club, I can't do that. I mean, I can do that. I can join together. There can be class action lawsuits. There can be these things. And there is an entire community of people. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands and thousands of people that are in Disney Vacation Club, and the acts of a fraction of those people contacting Disney and complaining and getting this done affected things for a lot of people who don't even know that they were affected by this. Like, they had no idea this was even happening. So it's like there's people out there that are looking out and are making sure that Disney is towing the line and making sure they'll put Disney in check. And you cannot do that if you're not a DVC member.
Exactly.
Yeah, and to Disney's credit and to DVC's credit, last year when this all happened and those of us that were calling and complaining, they actually set appointments, and I don't remember the person's name, but
Yvonne.
It was someone fairly high up within the organization reached out and talked to all of us individually. I spent an hour on the phone with her, and I can't say I was completely happy with the things she said, but I did appreciate that. That's something you're probably never going to get, as Sean just said, you're never going to get that from the cash side. If they raise the room rate by 10%, you're not going to call Disney and they're going to have somebody call you back and
Right.
talk to you about it. So
Yeah, on the flip side of that, though, the truth is that as DVC members, we signed a contract and we are on the hook for the right to use, right? For that RTU, we're on it for the
Right.
next 23 years or so.
Look, I've worked with Disney for going 22 years now, on pretty much every level, and they generally they're good, but there's a limit to what they'll do. I will tell you, my interactions with DVC management, the things I've seen as a new member this year, the membership really matters to them. This is not lip service. They actually care. Now, they also have a business to run. So sometimes that's a fine line you have to walk. Whereas, yes, we are members. We purchased a real estate interest. That gives us certain rights and certain legal rights that people on a cash side are not necessarily going to have. More of a reason for people to buy into DVC, if you ask me. But I found, my feeling is, when I looked at, when I went with John to that first, John got me into that first Moonlight Magic in May, and Fiasco and I walked around with him that night, and our jaws were just on the floor. That they did not charge for the party.
Yeah.
They were giving out free stuff, free food, free ice cream. Virtually everything was open. There was entertainment and
Really cool.
a special fireworks show. And it wasn't. I think they only let like 5,000 or 6,000 people
Yeah.
in.
It was like no after-hours event I've
No,
ever
it's just-
experienced. The World Showcase, it was basically like it was your own personal playground.
And this is why I said it clearly wasn't a money grab, because they weren't charging anything for it, right? So it's not a money grab. This is an act of appreciation for members. Mm-hmm. That's how it came across to me. That, okay, they really do appreciate the membership. And then again, like I said, with conversations I've had. So I'm not jaded to the point where I feel like, evil, DVC's evil, and we must fight them. I think, when you talk about the decisions made last year, I think that was a real learning moment for them. And I think that was a fair learning moment for them. I think that I would have been saying those same exact things had that happened again. But I look at these point charts for 2021. I'm like, okay. Now, again, I can kind of go when I feel like it. I'm not set. I don't normally travel during certain times of the year to Walt Disney World because I live here. So for me, it's a little bit different. But since we have 2 people in the room that do travel, and we have 4 that don't, we're going to go around, and we're just going to say yay or nay with the 21 point charts. We like it, we don't like it. I like them. I think they're all right.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with them. I also own an Alani, and it didn't really affect me. So that's still a 4. That's still a 4 season thing. So
I'm good with them too. I thought it was kind of cool how they spread everything out, and I don't have any problem with them because we don't like most of us here. We don't travel at certain times of the year, so every year or other year or whatever. So I'm good with them too.
Fiasco?
Yeah, so this is definitely a good thing for me too. My kind of experience with booking through DVC is I just search and try to find the best value for like 2 nights here or 3 nights here, maybe even 1 night there. So this is just going to benefit me in finding the cheapest nights.
Botcha galoop. Pete, what about you? Yay or nay on 2021?
I think it's a very fair thing to do. I think they're trying to redistribute the availability a little more. And the fact is, the fall is still one of the lower point times. So even though they raised what it is, it's still less points than it is in the summer. And I think it was very fair.
But safe to assume that for 2022, we're probably going to see these bumps again, aren't we?
Yeah, I think we could. I think we could. It might not be as large, but they might continue to shift sometimes. As John said, I wouldn't be surprised if they raise December some more.
Mm-hmm. All right, John, what about you?
For my family personally, this actually increased the cost for us. But this is actually a big yay for me. You have no idea. I was really waiting for them to just stick it to us. And this really shows me that there was a concerted effort to look at what the membership needs are. And that's what people were really upset about in the past, was that our buying power was reduced wholesale. And this doesn't do that. So for me, this is a big, big yay.
So there you have it.
John was furious. John was furious. I was mad last year, but he was, he was really, really like,
but
I'm going to sell my points.
Look, on behalf of members, I thank you for being that way. Thank you for making those phone calls. Mm-hmm. Thank you for pushing the issue, because if you guys hadn't, if the membership had just laid down and allowed it, then everybody would have gotten screwed. And as a result of, I'm not saying it's all because of our boards, but I know that that played a huge, huge role. If not for that amazing community on the DVC boards, on disboards.com, I don't know that this would have changed. I really don't.
And there's also even smaller aspects of it. Like we ran into the issue earlier this year with the Top of the World Lounge. They did that 4th of July event, and there were a lot of people who were upset that they couldn't use the Top of the World Lounge for the 4th of July, because that's what they come.
Well, they hadn't given them a lot of notice.
They hadn't given enough notice and everything, and they certainly heard about it from a lot of people. And obviously that story didn't explode as big as this one did, but they were open to it and they listened, and they're doing a much better job now, because it is a fine line of legality wise they can do things. They're within their rights to do things, but also Disney, they don't want to push it too far and just make people mad for no reason.
Well, I mean, look, again, that's what I was talking about. They have to balance this running a business and the membership. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really good point. The outcry for the 4th of July party, you didn't hear that with the New Year's Eve party as much, because they learned from it. They said, okay, you know what? We didn't communicate this well. We're going to do it differently. Mm-hmm. We're going to make sure we listen to all that feedback. We're friends with one of the managers over there. Great. And I'm going to tell you what, nobody's ever going to convince me this woman doesn't live her life based on what is best for the members. Okay? We had the conversations with her about that, about 4th of July. We met her at that 4th of July mm-hmm. party. And she went so far out of her way to make sure that was not repeated with New Year's Eve and going forward. And that to make sure the people that were already booked at Bay Lake Tower had first dibs on that party, that another event open to all members was going to go on the night before, and really, really communicated it well, and we didn't see the meltdown. In fact, I heard a lot of really positive things coming after that. Okay, you let us know. So the membership's not unreasonable either. When people can say that DVC members bitch and moan, I don't think en masse the membership is unreasonable. But I also will not subscribe to this idea that the management at DVC is evil and out to get us. Mm-hmm. So good job on 2021, I guess. Moving in the right direction. All right, that is going to do it for this episode. You're going to be watching this on Monday the 16th, and within a few hours of this going up, we have a bonus show coming to you from a grand villa at Riviera. So 16th is the opening of Riviera. Very, very excited. The entire team is going to be covering it, so we've got a lot of content that will be coming out across all of our websites. I still haven't figured out what that's going to look like yet, but it's coming. So thanks for being with us, folks, and we'll see you again next time with another edition of the DVC Show. Have a great week.